I don't even know. 144 straight days of Clippers talk for you. Welcome in. I'm Adam Osland. We haven't missed a show here since October 4th. We keep the streak alive. Appreciate you guys for rolling with me for this long. It keeps me motivated, keeps me going. As does this team, even in times like this. We're going to talk about it. Let's give them something to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. Got a lot of post-game sound to review from last night. Have something concerning in the standings going on right now that I want to talk about. But I do want to start things off with addressing the question that I put out in this very video. Will the Clippers figure this out? Can the Clippers figure this out? What exactly do they need to figure out? Well, I would say that most of this is about one thing. And you can overcomplicate it. You can play the blame game. You can point fingers at everyone. You can try to look for reasons that I don't think are necessarily there, but you can make them up. You can promote the false narratives, or you can just Occam's razor this. And sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. The easiest answer is the one you should look to first. And I think that's the Clippers are not healthy. I think they are losing games, the majority of the reason by far, because they're not healthy. And I think in a superstar-driven league, in a star-driven league, where we know all the best teams have their stars, the Clippers have not had theirs of late. Two guys that should be combining to average 50 per game in Kawhi and Norman Powell. And if you don't have those guys against good teams, you're probably going to lose games. Isn't that the simplest answer? Isn't that what typically happens? People want to be doomers. They want to make more out of this. Say, Adam, just say it. This era of Clippers basketball is over. Which era? The 2-1-3 era was already over. I mean, the Clippers had just lost 3 in a row. The peak of this era was the Eastern Conference Finals in 2021. Okay, I'm sure you mean the Western Conference Finals, but that's still funny to me. I've been saying for a while that, yeah, there's a real good chance that the Clippers' titles hopes went when Kawhi's ACL blew out, taking that step next to Joe Ingles in the second round. I've been saying that for a while. That, yeah, there's a real good chance that could have been the end of everything. Should the Clippers have predicted that? Should they have known that was going to happen? No. So why are you blaming them? Like, I don't understand the logic of blaming somebody who is chronically injured for being injured because his body has betrayed him. Somebody that wants to play, but his body keeps breaking down. And I don't understand the logic of blaming the front office. Oh, they should have known Kawhi was going to tear his ACL. It's like, they did everything right. The team looked like they were going to win the championship. Most of the analysts and the experts all said that. And unfortunately, your number one player, you couldn't win without, tore his ACL in the second round. So I don't know what the point is of overanalyzing a lot of this stuff going on right now, too. It's kind of the same thing. It's injuries. It's not that they were bad when they were healthy. They have the best net rating in the league with their starting five. They're clearly good when they're healthy. And now people are thinking it's something to do with the trade deadline and something to do with losing Kevin Porter Jr., who was objectively really bad at times and had tunnel vision and didn't make very high-level, high IQ basketball plays out there. And we've never seen the playoff series, and that probably is a concern, and they wanted a different look. I don't know how many times people in here were like, I can't take watching Kevin Porter Jr. anymore. And now he's gone for 3 games. If people are thinking it's that, like, that's crazy. It's nuts. It's nothing to do with that. The simplest answer is often the correct one. It's injuries. Do you think they lose that game yesterday if they have Kawhi and Norm? No. So let's worry about the things that you can control and understand the things outside of your control that can be holding you back. You got to let that stuff go. Or you got to place the blame or attribute losses to where it belongs. Like, yeah, they lost to the Pistons, who have won 7 in a row. Somebody at the comment section was like, no excuses for this. Pistons aren't a good team. I'm not even that impressed by Cade. Like, how did we lose to this team? It's like, I don't know. How did all these other teams lose to this team? It might be because they're good, and the Clippers didn't have their 2 most important players, maybe their 2 biggest scorers. I just, a couple of weeks ago, when I think they started 6-1 with Kawhi, everybody's talking about how we can compete with anyone in the Western Conference. Kawhi gets back to playing 36 minutes a night. We're good. This team's good. And nobody scares us in the West. Wasn't that what everybody was saying in here? And now, because they don't have Kawhi right now, and they're losing games, the same guy that you thought would make you competitive against anybody in the West that you don't have, and you're losing. Well, maybe it's because, you're missing him. Maybe it's that simple. I don't understand why we have to overcomplicate things, why we have to play the blame game, why we have to take this into Lawrence Frank should be fired or Coach Lue should be fired territory like I saw all of last night. It's like, wait a second. If you switched rosters last night, I think the Pistons are still winning under Coach Lue. You think he's the problem? It was a lack of talent. Guys missing an inordinate amount of threes in Bogdanovich, who I did want to start, and I think that was a good move, and everybody thought it was a good move. It didn't work. You don't blame good process moves if they don't work out. Like, you play the odds. I could understand, if Coach Lue was playing some horrible lineups and playing the wrong guys. Like, Bogey needs to play. He needs to figure it out from 3. Maybe he got it out of his system going 1 of 12. So the panic and scrutiny and just the level of sky is falling from Clipper Nation right now, it's like you already forgot that they just went through a 3-game losing streak and then won 3 in a row. That just happened. Doesn't mean they're going to respond and win the next 3 in a row, but it just happened. Minnesota beat OKC on a back-to-back with Edwards scoring 2 points in the fourth quarter. Stop making excuses for this pathetic team. The team is made up of, like, the reason you guys have high expectations for this team. Let me put this clearly. The reason that you have high expectations for this team is because the players that make up for the team, the players that make up the team, and especially the talented players, the star players that make up the team. So if those players aren't there, why are you having the exact same expectations? The reason you have them is because of players, the best players on the team. If those players are not playing and you're still holding them to the same expectation like they are, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But you can't help some people. I get it. Fans, fanatics, passionate. This is the way it goes. And fans can be understandably irrational at times. I get it. I can be the same way. But I think it is asking a lot to continue to win as if they have Kawhi and Norman Powell when they don't. The reason you think this team can be good is because of guys like that. If those guys are not there, how can they be good? Trying my best here to bring some rationale to this conversation. But I know some people just don't want to hear it. It's funny. People, after last night's game, are saying, you're making excuses for this team. You work for the team and this stuff. Did I sound like I was making excuses when they blew a 13-point lead to Milwaukee in the fourth quarter in game one of the All-Star break? I said there was no excuse for that. Giannis didn't play the last 6.5 minutes. So it's a case-by-case basis. I try to provide the context to each and every game. Every game has its own story. I think last night's game, whether it's an excuse or an explanation, however, it's the eye of the beholder stuff, however you look at it, I think there's an obvious explanation for how they lost those last two games. The Milwaukee game, yeah, you can go after them. I said it was fair game. I was upset. Not all games are created equal. Not all games are the same. They never are. The factors going into them, like, I don't know, availability of stars, to just push that aside and act like that stuff doesn't matter and be like, hey, doesn't matter. We should be winning. Like, I'll read this comment from somebody from last night that I thought, I mean, it was pretty funny to me. And I think the guy told on himself a little bit. But somebody said, Mark JN3WO said, no offense, but outside of Cade, and I don't think he is all that, what talent do the Pistons actually have? This was an embarrassing loss. An embarrassing loss to a team that apparently is handing out a lot of embarrassing losses this season. They've won a lot of games. They're well over 500. They've won 7 in a row. They're on their hottest streak in 10 years. And losing to that team without Kawhi and without Norman Powell is an embarrassing loss. Make it make sense. And downplaying how good Cade has been, I don't think he's all that. It's like, I don't know how much ball you watch. Man. Sure, I think it's fair to say Bogey has been disappointing. Totally get that. I also think this was more than just getting him. This was getting 3 second-round picks and trading a guy who was out of the rotation anyways in Terrence Mann. People are asking me, what are my expectations for the team? If the team is healthy, just like before, a couple weeks ago when they were playing great, If they're fully healthy and have Kawhi playing at an all NBA level, then yes, they can compete with pretty much anybody in the West. To do that, they have to be healthy. Do they look like they're a playing team anymore, the Pistons? Because they're not. Do they look like they've been playing like a playing team? See, this is when I just don't understand. People just are devoid of context. They don't care. They just want to lash out. They want to be upset. They want to be mad. Okay, do your thing. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I'm just going to tell you how I would go about it. And you can take it or leave it. My expectations for this team coming into this season, I said clearly I think they're a top 6 seed or they are a 6 seed at best. That was their ceiling. That's what I said coming into this season. And while there were times where it felt like, ooh, maybe they could sneak in and be a top 4, it's all dependent on health. How many other teams have had their best player for just 16 games? Go ahead, list them for me. If you want to be mad that Kawhi can't stay healthy, okay. Nothing he can do about that. It's out of his control. Like, asking me how the season is going to play out, let me know who's available, and I'll tell you how it's going to play out. I don't know who's going to be playing. A team is as good as their players. If you're missing the most talented players, you're not going to be a very good team. If you're missing the players that gave you those high expectations, then you should probably lower the expectations, especially when they're playing good teams like the Pistons and Pacers. I don't understand. It's not that difficult. If you're missing your best players and a good team has theirs, it's going to be difficult to win those games. If you're frustrated because the team can never stay healthy, I get that. It sucks. They've been extremely unlucky. The franchise, the organization, back to Bill Walton, has been extremely unlucky. RIP. It always feels like their stars get hurt. Because for the most part, they have been. What can they do about that? What can they do about Kawhi? If you're saying trade him, okay, maybe they try that at some point. Do you think the rest of the league is unaware that after this season he still has $100 million left on his deal and he hasn't been able to stay healthy? Do you think the rest of the league is in the dark about that? Maybe Nico is. Good luck to the Mavs tonight against Luka, who's going to drop 50. But outside of that, it is going to be difficult to move that contract. Maybe you do so, just don't get a lot back. Again, I don't think the contract is holding them back so much. They are capable of beating the Bulls. They should beat the Bulls no matter who. I mean, not no matter who, but if they have the same team that they had playing last night, they should still beat the Bulls on Wednesday. There you go, Bastion. That's context. The Bulls are not very good. They've lost 6 of 7. They beat Philly, who has given up on the season, but they have lost 6 of 7. They're not very good. See, that's the difference. Like, I'll be fair about it. I didn't feel good about them going up against Detroit, who had won 6 straight heading into that game last night, given who the Clippers had available. I do feel good about them if they have that same roster available Wednesday with at least James Harden out there beating the Bulls. That's the difference. It's really simple. So you're trying to catch me in these gotcha questions. Good luck. I try to apply the context surrounding these games. They're not on a back-to-back either, and they're playing a bad team. And yeah, things could be worse. They could be Philly. People are acting like they're Philly right now. It's crazy to me. It's like this. If I had told you the state of things, how many games Norm has missed this season and recently, how many games Kawhi has played in, just 16, the West being tough still, and I told you with 30% left in the season, which is where the Clippers are at with 25 games left, that's 30% left in the season. If I had told you in the preseason that the Clippers, with 16 games from Kawhi Leonard, would still be 5 games above 500, if I had told you that in the preseason, you would have signed up for it. You would have. You would have said, damn, this team's playing well. They're overachieving. But now, I guess people don't want to hear it in the moment. But they have been. And if you don't have your top guys, I think you need to factor that in to losses against teams who do that are good. I don't care who the Bulls have on Wednesday. The Clippers need somebody. But if they have James Harden, if they have the roster, if they have the guys from last night, they should win that game. That's a no excuses, must win. Again, if I give you the context of they've had Kawhi Leonard, their best player, for just 16 games, where he's been ramping up, not playing his usual minutes, not at the level we need him to be to make real noise in a playoff series yet. If I had told you all that, and then I told you the Clippers were still 5 games over 500 and in the 6th spot in the West, you would have said they are overachieving in the preseason. Based upon all the conversations we had in here, I know, and I am damn sure y'all would have said that. Because I got a very good memory of what the tone and tenor was when we talked about the Clippers then. All the media was saying bottom 4 team in the West. People in here were doubters, like, if we can tread water and maybe be 500 or a little bit below that without Kawhi, we'll take that. And now they've been better than that, but people are still upset. So maybe you raised your expectations to an unrealistic place at some point and forgot that the most important thing in the NBA is having dudes, as Ricky G would say. Stars, your superstars. It's a star-driven league. Why? Because there's only 5 guys on the court. So one guy is making up 20% of what you do, and actually it's much higher than that based upon usage rating. One guy can affect the game so much more than in other sports, team sports. If you don't have those guys, you're going to struggle. Bastian said, if I told you that the only team we've beaten in the month of February is the Utah Jazz, what would you say? I would say that probably means they're injured. That's what I would say. Because when they're healthy, I know this team is good. I know the front office constructed a solid team with a high floor. I know Coach Lou's a good coach. I know they have the players to compete. So if they're not healthy, they're going to struggle. They've lost some games still that they shouldn't have. That happens over 82 games. I've criticized them for that. That's real. You go through ruts during a long season. The Clippers have been notorious for that happening out of the All-Star break the last 2 seasons. I mean, they played, 9 games in February? It sounds worse than it is because you play your least amount of games in the month of February because of the All-Star break in a shortened month. I'm just trying to bring some understanding to what's going on right now. I'm not saying you can't be mad. You can be mad. I'm not saying you can't be disheartened. You can be. I'm just saying the biggest reason for this is about injuries. Not the only reason, the biggest reason. And I still think this team healthy, and if Kawhi can get back to playing at an all NBA level, that yes, they could scare pretty much anyone in the West. Why would I change that thought? It's like, oh, we were only 1-point underdogs last night. The notion that this was an unwinnable game is hilarious. Are those the same odds makers that said the Clippers were going to win 35 games this year? They're the same ones. What does that matter? I thought Beauchamp could play last night. I thought Batum could get more minutes. Fair criticism there. Do I think that's the biggest reason they lost? No. But yeah, that's fair. So I want to hear from Coach Lou post game last night. Maybe we'll get some more understanding on what's going on. And full disclosure, I did listen to this last night. And La Murray also had some post game sound from Ivica Zubac and Bogey that I want to get to as well. If I could pull up the actual sound for you. Man, why is it this difficult sometimes? All right. Here was Coach Lou last night. I'll share it with you. We'll go through it together. I'll talk about something I am really worried about with this team and the state of the West coming up in a little bit here. If you Doomers can hold on for that conversation. All right, here we go. Here is Coach Lou post game after the Clippers lost 106-97 to the Pistons.
I guess we got to start with the fouls. It's been 2 of the last 3 games, maybe not as much yesterday, but 2 of the last 3 games struggled to defend without fouling. Where do you feel like that's coming from?
I don't know. I got to look at it, but yeah, we are fouling too much. I think teams are trying to attack us, get to the paint, and then we are fouling a little too much. And then sometimes, when guys don't have a chance to really make the shot, we're still fouling guys. And so we just got to be smart with that. We can't let teams get into the bonus with 9 minutes to go in the quarter because then they're going to attack more. So we just got to be better with our fouling. But we still want to be aggressive. So we got to be smart. We don't want to take away from our aggressiveness on the defensive end of, being physical, being in the bodies. But we got to be smart when we're doing it.
I think this is an interesting point of criticism. And something that needs to be evaluated and looked at right now. And Coach Lou, it sounds like he will be. But opponents last night was extremely unusual. But overall, the Clippers are fouling way too much. The last 3 games, they're 28th in the league in free throw attempts given up per game, although they're tied with 2 other teams, so you could say they're dead last, because they're giving up 30 free throw attempts per game over the last 3 games. Some of that's heavily weighed upon last night's game and the Milwaukee game. I noticed this too. I thought they didn't get a great whistle last night, but there were too many fouls, and I think it was early in the second quarter when the Pistons were really living at the free throw line. Might have happened again in the third. But some of that can be, as Coach Lou brought up there, well, you're being really aggressive defensively. You're trying to get back to playing very good defense. And last night, there was a lot of progress on that end. Holding a team that just put up like 140 to 106, their defense wasn't the problem. It was their offense. And their intensity on defense was not a problem at all last night. They played really hard there. Were they overly aggressive at times? Maybe. Leading to some of these fouls? Sure. Would you rather have that than them not playing with intensity out there and passion? No, but there has to be a balance, is Coach Lewis saying there. What if I go back a little bit further than 3 games? Let's see opponents' free throw attempts per game, because I do think this is worth looking at. So if I go back 10 games, like they're 12th. They're in the upper half. They're only giving up 22.7 per game. What if I go back 7 games? If I go back 7, okay, more of an issue. They're giving up about 25 free throws per game. So it's been a little bit of something to watch as of late. Fouling too much, not being able to defend without fouling. That has definitely been a problem. Against the Pacers, it was too. All right. More from Coach Lou with Lommery.
Where do you feel like this game, you guys were in it for a while, but now it just feels like when teams start to run on y'all start to lose control of games. Like, where do you feel like they were starting to get their runouts in that third quarter?
A few turnovers. And then, like you said, we couldn't make a shot, and so they was able to get rebounds and push it and attack early. But that's where it came from. But like I said, I wouldn't fault our guys' effort and what they try to do. We couldn't make a shot. And then, on the second night of a back-to-back, which they were too, but, having to play James 39 minutes is just, too many in my opinion. But we had to try to do what we had to do to win the game. But, he clearly got tired, and we shouldn't have to ask him to do that. So I just take responsibility for that. But, he wants to play, and, we just couldn't get it done. So they've been playing, really good basketball. JB's done a hell of a job. And they're a good team. They're not the Pistons of old, and they've been playing good basketball. And like I said, we did a good job. We just couldn't make shots and couldn't close quarters well enough.
Okay, 2 things there. Those fast break points by the Pistons, they were phenomenal last night in that area. They ended up with, I'll bring up the third quarter first, because that's where a lot of the damage was done in the fast break by them. And they were getting them off of just missed shots. It wasn't even, after they had 15 fast break points in the first half, it wasn't even just turnovers. Like, Clippers missed a shot, they're running. In that third quarter alone, they had 10 fast break points. They ended up in the ball game. Okay. They ended up with 27, so they only had 2 in the fourth quarter. It was really that third quarter where I noticed it, and that 8-0 run to end the third, to put them up by 10 heading into the fourth quarter. That was damaging to the Clippers. So they gave up 106 points, and about 25% of them, since they had 25 fast break points, were in transition. I still don't fault the defense much. I credit the Pistons more than anything, watching the way they would run off of missed shots, not live ball turnovers. It's tough. Now, the second part, he's talking about playing James Harden heavy minutes on a back-to-back, where he ended up, what did he play against Indiana? How many minutes was he at there? Just want to add this up real quick. So he played 35 minutes against the Pacers, probably because that game eventually got out of hand. And then last night, he's at 39 minutes. Part of the problem is, and has been all season long, and it's caught up with them at times. I think last night was one of those examples. James Harden goes 5 of 22. Thompson played good defense on him. They're a good defensive team. But he had 18, 5 assists to 7 turnovers, and was 5 of 22 from the field after 31 points on just 17 shots against Indiana. I could see this game coming after the way he played against the Pacers and was uber efficient out there and just being on a back-to-back. And if you're going to play him 39 minutes, I could definitely see it coming. Did they have a lot of options? No, not really. He was staggering him and Chris Dunn to have one of those guys on the floor to handle the rock pretty much the entire game. Relying on a guy who has a usage rating like he's 25 when he's 35 and James Harden, it's a problem. It's a problem because of the injuries. his usage rating would be much lower if Kawhi was able to play more than 16 games so far. So out of necessity, they're having to play James, and we'll hear from him in a little bit on playing these heavy minutes, but it's not, they add up. You eventually have to pay the piper. There is a minutes tax going on. Even if you get away with it for a game or two, eventually it's going to come back to bite you. But do they have options? No. It goes back to what can they do? They have a ton of injuries. More from Coach Lou.
You switch up the lineup, Bogey guys first start. Do you feel like he's comfortable enough? Missed shots can mean a lot of things, especially for a guy with his, resume and everything. Like, where do you feel like he can be better, and where do you feel like the ball's just going to go in at some point?
Well, when you come to a new team, just first not trying to step on guys' toes, but we want him to be aggressive. And, just understanding, he's got to get used to the offense, understand where his shots are going to come from. That will help him out a lot, And so his shots have been coming sporadic, in transition, driving kicks, sometimes off pick and roll himself. So just getting comfortable with the offense, just getting comfortable where his shots are going to come from. And we know he can make shots, and, we're not really worried about that.
Bogey had a miserable game last night. Do I think it was the right decision and good process to start him? Hell yeah. We all thought it. Everybody liked that starting lineup. Do I think they win the game if they just don't play Bogey? No. He was still helping spread the floor. They brought attention his way. The first 3 threes he missed, they were right up on him. He has a reputation. He's been a sniper. He had an awful shooting game. Could they have gone somewhere else? Not really. They're in a position right now where you kind of have to ride and die with a guy like that. You need his shooting. Hopefully he has it on Wednesday. Hopefully he bounces back. But I don't fault them playing Bogey. And he still hit a 3 late, the one he hit to bring it to within 5. I trust that guy. We'll hear from him coming up. But Bogey's a vet. He's a 38% career three-point shooter. He's had a bad season. He's only played less than 30 games, I think. Or maybe he's right at 30 now. It's not a huge sample size, especially compared to last season. He shot 653s last year at 38%. I'm going to keep going back to him because they don't have the options. They need him to get it going.
And then, you guys have played 9 games this month. All of them, you've been down double digits at some point. Where do you feel like there's a common thread where, you guys aren't able to keep teams from building these big leads? It feels like y'all have been playing from behind a lot compared to earlier in the season, even with Kawhi not being on the floor. Y'all are having the double-digit leads. Where do you feel like that switched?
Coach Lou said there, it happens. Maybe some frustration. I know that answer is not going to be satisfactory to many of you guys hearing that. But I'm hoping that's what it is. I'm hoping it's not something to read into too much. I want to check their first quarter in particular, offensive rating and net rating in first quarters in February. Let's just see. Or you know what? I'll go plus minus. I'll make it easier to digest. Plus minus in first quarters in February. Let's see. So they're a minus 3.8 points. Oh, no. I didn't do first quarters. I just did February in general. Let me get my parameters right here. Sorry, guys. So in first quarters in February, they're 22nd, and they're losing them by an average of 3.4 points. That's 22nd in the league. It's not great. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's interesting. We'll see what happens with that. When you have guys shuffling in and out of the lineup, I need to see this team whole. I need to see some consistency with lineups and healthy guys before I make those long-reaching conclusions. Let's hear from James Harden post-game question here about, I think, the heavy minutes he's been playing. This is Law Murray of The Athletic.
The game, T, he was pretty apologetic about the fact that you had to play so many minutes trying to get this win and everything. Like, what's those conversations like when you kind of convince him that you want to be out there, you need to be out there, you know, even if it's a result that obviously y'all not planning for?
Game by game. I think we both competitors. All of us are trying to win, so we're trying to figure a way. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I got to ask you about Cade, you know.
All right, he gives Cade some love there, but he said we're both competitors. It's a game-by-game approach with how they distribute the minutes with him and check it in, I'm guessing, on how he's feeling. But he's talking about we got to win games no matter how it looks out there. James Harden is the MVP of this team this season, easily. With the amount of minutes he's been playing, with no-nonsense approach. I think he's missed 2 games maybe. Been awesome. Extremely reliable, dependable. It would be nice if his field goal percentages and three-point percentage was higher, but I understand why it's not. If he was 25 and playing the amount of minutes, yeah, he could probably be much more efficient. He's 35. He's not supposed to be doing this. But it's what's being asked out of necessity because of the injuries. Kawhi's only played 16 games. I just like the competitor that he has shown us to be as a Clipper. You know, it's one thing to cover a guy and he's a superstar and you know how great he is, but it's another to see him on the opposition or see him with Houston or Brooklyn or in Philly, but you get this up close and personal look of who James Harden is as a competitor now as a Clipper, and I'm glad he's a Clipper. Let's hear from Bogey post-game after he went 1 for 12 from 3. It's brutal.
A chance to start your first game with the team. What was it like to get that assignment? Like, what did the coaches kind of tell you and everything?
I mean, it was a good opportunity for me to have a good game, especially to play more with James. But obviously, I didn't play great tonight, especially offensively. Got myself in foul trouble. It is what it is. If I make my shots that I usually make, we'd probably be in a better situation to win this game. Didn't play smart. Got to be honest with myself. Watch the tape, get better. Next game in 2 days, get back on a winning streak.
This is a true badass right here. Taking accountability. That basically it's on me. If I make the shots I usually make, we're in a better position to win this game. I love Bogey. I believe in Bogey. I think he's going to turn this around.
It is what it is. If I make my shots that I usually make, we'd probably be in a better situation to win this game. Didn't play smart. Got to be honest with myself. Watch the tape, get better. Next game in 2 days, get back on a winning streak.
How much are your team, I mean, I heard Zoo a little bit just now, but like how much are your team, like especially during the game, encourage you, even if you're missing shots, to keep going, play your game and everything?
They've been great, like even Norman and Vi and everybody, James, everybody. Keep shooting. They thought I even skipped some shots too, so I'm trying to find myself in a role in a team and fit in, and the most important for me is to find a way contributing, winning. So sometimes, probably the best for the team is to be a little bit more aggressive, find thinking about myself, find my rhythm as well, not thinking about how I'm going to fit in. So I'll work towards it, and it's all here.
Yeah. Well, on that note.
I mean, listen to that. It's all here. He points to his head. He's in a shooting funk. It's all mental. That's all this is right now. And the guy's encouraging him to keep shooting. That's what you have to do to get out of it. They know how much he can mean to this team when he's right. I feel the same way. Bogey can raise your ceiling. He can swing a playoff series. Like, he is that good when he's right. So get him there. Sometimes you got to shoot your way out of a funk like this. Shooters shoot. It's the only way.
Find my rhythm as well. I'm not thinking about how I'm going to fit in. So I'll work towards it, and it's all here.
Yeah. Well, on that note, and it's my last question, just what, if anything, did you find today that you could build off of for Wednesday in Chicago?
Every game, especially when you lose, and when you're so down, I think that that gives you a lot of power to think forward, and a lot of just how you say, confidence, to keep believing and keep working. And it's easy when everything is good. Sometimes you can mask yourself with a couple wins, but it's good to see the real picture sometimes.
Let's get
confidence.
This is a really interesting answer about losing and how you can flip it and turn it into a positive, where you can really figure out what's going wrong. He talked about sometimes you're winning and you're masking mistakes and bad habits. Like, that's why I always say a win's not a win, a loss isn't a loss. Like, it depends on how you play. Like, you can learn more from learn more from defeat and turn it into victories later on. But this is a pretty high level answer from Bogey here.
Every game, especially when you lose, and when you're so down, I think that that gives you a lot of power to think forward, and a lot of just how you say, confidence, to keep believing and keep working. And it's easy when everything is good. Sometimes you can mask yourself with a couple wins, but it's good to see the real picture sometimes.
Appreciate Hoop Jab and especially Lot Murray for the audio and the interviews there. But yeah, you can create a lot of bad habits in victories that come back to bite you later. Like, I think the Clippers have at times with them winning that game against the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if it was a month ago, but they had 12 turnovers in the fourth quarter. 12. And you could see they couldn't handle the press at all when Golden State threw it at them. Well, other teams have picked up on that. So even though that was a win, the bad tape was out there, and it's turned into losses since then. They haven't been good handling the press. That Indiana game, when they came back down 22 at Intuit Dome, that's exactly what that was. Clippers just having turnovers in bunches. Also, there was sound from Ivica Zubac's post-game talking about how, and there was a fan going on in the background, so it wasn't that audible, but he mentioned how he felt like there was some progress, basically, with them defensively against the Pistons yesterday. He thought they were better there. Thought they fouled too much still, yes, but they were better overall defensively, and I think that's pretty obvious. Now, my biggest concern, and it's something I've been looking at for a while, but after last night's game between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves, where it was a home and home, OKC won in Minnesota. Then they go to OKC last night, and Minnesota is down 16 with 3:41 left in the game. They tied it to go into overtime, and they won that game. That's the type of victory where a win's not just a win. That will have momentum. That will springboard them forward. I'm pretty sure about that, because it's not just that they got this miraculous win against the best team in the West after losing to them, and they did so, and they beat them in Oklahoma City, but The Minnesota Timberwolves have one of the easier schedules left in the NBA. While the Clippers have the 6th toughest strength of schedule, teams they're playing have a win percentage of .530. They still have 2 games left with the team with the best record in the league in the Cleveland Cavaliers. They still have 1 game left against OKC, 2 against the Knicks, 1 against Memphis, 2 against the Lakers coming up, 1 against Houston. Well, Minnesota has the 29th toughest strength of schedule left. The win percentage that they're going up against is .439. Like, they're playing way more teams that are under 500. They do have 2 left against Denver, a game against Memphis, a game against the Lakers, a game against the Bucks, 2 against the Pacers, 1 against the Pistons, but they have 3 games left against the Jazz, 2 games against New Orleans, game against Charlotte, 2 against Philadelphia, 2 against Brooklyn, 1 against San Antonio. They have the 2nd easiest schedule left in the league. The Clippers, the 6th toughest schedule left in the league. Now, they also have 2 left against the Pelicans, a game against Charlotte left for the Clippers, a game against Brooklyn, a game against Chicago, a game against the Spurs, a game against Miami that's looked upon as a bad team now. The Clippers are in a really rough spot. I'll bring you some good news here in a second, but Minnesota is behind them in the standings by the slimmest of margins. Basically, when it comes to win percentage, it's better to have 1 less loss than 1 more win. So the Clippers are 31-26, and they're barely ahead in win percentage. Their win percentage is .544. Minnesota's is .542 because they have 1 more win, but 1 more loss. Better to have 1 less loss than 1 more win. They're at 32-27. They're only 5-5 their last 10 games. They haven't been playing great, but I'm just guessing, given how easy the schedule is for them coming up, and getting a huge victory when all season long they have lost so many close games in clutch time, and then they pulled that off last night against OKC. Yeah, they're probably going to start rolling. Now, maybe Randall comes back and he hurts their momentum, but tough to see that right now. As for the other team to worry about, and I guess there's 2 we could talk about. There's really 4 teams competing for 3 spots that I see in the West with the Clippers when it comes to being a top 6 seed. The Lakers, the Rockets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are the other 3 with the Clippers, making up the 4. So we'll talk about the Rockets. Now, they have the 19th toughest schedule left. Clippers 6th, Rockets 19th. So another team with an easier schedule than them. The problem is, currently, the Clippers are 4 games back of them, right? Wrong. They're 5 games because they lost the head-to-head tiebreaker because Houston has beaten them all 3 times this season. So even if the Clippers win the final game between them, Houston has the tiebreaker head-to-head. So they're really 5 games back. I don't think they're catching them. 5 games back with 25 games left. Houston would really have to go on a tailspin now. They have been losing some games. They're 3-7, their last 10. But they had a big victory over the Timberwolves, but then lost to the Jazz. We'll see. 3-7 their last 10 is not nothing. It's worth paying attention to, but being 5 games back of them, that's a lot to overcome. A team they're 4 games back of, where the tiebreaker is still up in the air, would be the Los Angeles Lakers. So what about their strength of schedule? Here's the good news I was talking about. They actually have the 4th toughest strength of schedule left in the NBA. Tougher than the Clippers. Clippers 6th, they're at 4. They got 2 games left against OKC. They still got to go to Boston. They got 2 more games against Denver. They got to play the Knicks, Memphis, and 2 more against Houston. Comparable strength of schedule to the Clippers. If the Clippers could somehow find a way, and I know things look bleak right now, guys, and I know it's tough right now to imagine this, but if the Clippers could somehow find a way to win both games Friday and Sunday at Crypto, they'd have the head-to-head tiebreaker against the Lakers. They'd be back in business. Not going to be easy. Lakers are probably going to smash Dallas tonight at home. And Luka's probably going off. And I'm probably going to rage because Nico Harrison never should have made that trade. And it's asinine. And to do it with the Lakers of all teams, when you're Dallas, it's so nonsensical. I'll never be able to forgive the Mavs. Never. And a guy who, thinks he's smarter than everyone in Nico Harrison? I mean, how can you come to that conclusion that that's a good idea? I don't care about his work ethic or lack thereof with Luka Doncic. Look how good he is even with that. You don't trade top 5 players at the age of 25. And yeah, is AD going to be even back this season? Especially for a guy who's injury prone himself and older. So, yeah, the Clippers could be in trouble. They could fall into the play-in. We need Minnesota to lose, the Rockets to lose, the Lakers to lose. That's the formula. They don't have the tiebreaker against Minnesota. They don't have the tiebreaker against Houston. They'd have to win both games this weekend to get the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Lakers. What they really need is to just get healthy. That's the key to all of this. If the Clippers are healthy and whole, they're a good team. And they can beat anyone, any night. What they really, really need is not just to get healthy, but to get Kawhi back to playing at an all-NBA level. Now, he did have 25 in both of his last 2 games. They weren't the most efficient games, but there was some progress. So for this setback to be happening now, yeah, it's brutal. I don't care if he's available or not on Wednesday. The Clippers have to win that game against Chicago. The Bulls are 23-35, 3-7 their last 10 games. They have lost 6 of their last 7. Their only win did just come, was it yesterday or the day before, against Philadelphia, where they beat a Sixers team that has given up 142-110. So they might have a little bit of confidence and momentum. I don't care. As long as the Clippers have the same guys available as they did last night, they got to win that game. Now, if all of a sudden Harden went missing, hopefully that doesn't happen. And they were without him and Norm and Kawhi. That's a different story, but I don't expect that to happen. I expect, but I've been saying this the last 2 games too, one of Kawhi or Norm to be back for that game, but it doesn't matter. You have to win it. Must-win game against Chicago. That's what it's got to be. Before we get out of here, I do want to remind you guys, Clippers Talk is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest way to play fantasy sports. It is available in over 30 states. All you got to do is pick higher or lower on your favorite player stats or least favorite player stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Make picks, win money, and I got a free promo code for you that gives new users a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. The promo code is LAC, and you can find it and the referral link in the description down below in this very episode. Underdog Fantasy, make picks, win money. I'm Adam Moslin. Yeah, we'll see what the injury report says later on tonight, but regardless, they got to win that game against Chicago on Wednesday. We'll have pregame for you starting right back here at 4. I'm Adam Mosland. This has been another edition of Clippers Talk. Talk to you tomorrow.